There's no doubt in anybody's mind that being a catcher is the hardest position on the field. And if you disagree with that, you're probably a pitcher. But what are the qualities that allow you to become the catcher that every pitcher wants to throw to? And how do you become the catcher that your coach fully trusts and has no choice but to pencil in the lineup every single game? What are the traits that all great catchers have in common? Today, I'm going to give you a few things that, if you practice, will help you unlock that catcher's mindset and will help you become an absolute dog behind the plate and will hopefully help you separate yourself and have a long and successful career. The first piece is a win at all costs mentality. Every baseball player, every catcher says that they want to win, right? But a win at all costs mentality basically means leaving your fear off of the field. A lot of times as young catchers, there's some kind of fear that we're dealing with. Fear of failure, fear of what our parents are going to say to us on the way home, maybe fear of losing our starting role, fear of getting benched, fear of getting buried on a lineup. All of these fears can come into play when we're trying to perform as athletes and as catchers. But a win at all costs mentality means that you've developed the resilience to leave all of that extra mental clutter aside. And when you're on the field, your only objective is helping the team win. You're going to do whatever has to be done to help your team secure a win, to make sure that you guys are given high fives at the end of the game. The second piece of the puzzle is being selfless and humble. More than any other position on the field, as catchers, we need to be as selfless and as humble as they come if we want to have a long and successful career. Nobody likes a guy that makes everything all about them. Think about the best teammates that you've played with. They were very selfless. They were very humble. Maybe they had confidence that spoke for itself, but they were humble in the way they treated others, the way that they approached the game. And with our role behind the plate, we play a very thankless role. We often have to be the first ones at practice. We often have to be the last ones to leave. And we have extra taxing duties on our body. Sometimes we're going to be caught up in the bullpen, catching bullpens for the majority of practice, and we might miss out on swings during BP. And that is just part of the role. So if you let that stuff get to you, if you let it affect the way that you treat others on your team or your coaches or the game itself, that is not conducive to a successful catcher. A humble and selfless catcher is willing to go the extra mile, even if it means nothing in return. So as simple as catching every single bullpen, showing up early if some of your teammates need to get extra work in, being that guy. The third piece of the puzzle is a we before me mentality. So what that means is essentially putting we, or the success of your team, before your own individual success. So we is above me. As long as your team does what it needs to do to secure a win for that day, it doesn't necessarily matter how you do. Of course, we want to have success, but we don't want to put our own success before the success of our team. Let's say, for example, you have a really good defensive day, right? You're blocking balls in the dirt. Maybe you threw a guy out that day and you were very in sync with your pitcher. But let's say you went 0 for 4 at the plate. Maybe you struggled picking up pitches. Maybe you swung at some poor pitches. If you adopt a we before me mentality, those poor at-bats don't really affect you because you did your job to help that team win. So as long as the team is succeeding, you will find success along that road, but it has to be the team, or the we has to be your top priority for every single game. The fourth piece of the puzzle is grit. You're kind of a dirtbag behind the plate, right? You kind of seem to enjoy all of the hard parts of being a catcher. Everybody loves the catcher that, can get a foul tip to the face mask, get his bell rung, and then everybody in the stands is concerned for that guy. And maybe coach comes out and that catcher shoos the coach away, does not want to come out of the game. He's very gritty. He's very willing to get dirty to get his job done and to help his team win. So having grit is going to help you earn the respect of your teammates when they see that you're not scared of a little dirt. You're not scared of a little bit of pain, and you're going to do whatever it takes to help your pitcher, to help your team. That's what it means to be gritty. Coaches love that. Players love that. Pitchers love that, because they know if they spike a fastball and it's not where they wanted it to go, you're gritty enough to put your body on the line and keep that ball in front of them, which is going to help them pitch with more confidence, right? Which is why your coaches love that gritty catcher that's just willing to get the job done. The fifth piece of the puzzle is relationships. Now, some could argue that relationships extend past the field. This is how you treat your parents, how you treat, maybe the office manager at the facility that you work out at. How you treat others, especially your teammates, is what it means to have strong relationships. Think about a catcher like Yadier Molina. The reason this guy caught for so long, the reason that pitchers loved pitching to him, was because he had all of the traits that I'm outlining in this video, but he also had great relationships with the front office staff, with his managers, with his pitchers, and with the other position players on his team. So having good relationships across the board essentially is a characteristic that says, hey, this is a good guy, he's selfless, and that makes him a really good option to put behind the plate, as opposed to a guy who maybe doesn't get along with the pitchers as well. Maybe he's a headache for the managers, right? So having strong relationships and putting value and stock in all of those relationships that you build is going to help you separate yourself from your competition that might not have that characteristic developed. The sixth piece of the puzzle is reliability. I'll take the catcher that blocks every single ball in the dirt, wins borderline pitches for his pitcher, over the guy with, maybe a flashy arm, maybe can throw out a couple guys here and there, but is extremely unreliable on balls in the dirt or receiving, which is the bulk of his job. You don't necessarily have to be the best at any of these skill sets that a catcher has, but you have to be the most consistent with what you have. That means every single game, your pitchers, your fielders, your managers, they all know what they can expect from you because you show up in the same way. The way you treat your pregame routines, the way you treat your routines when you show up to the field. Being reliable means that I can expect the same level of performance from you, no matter the situation. Maybe it's a championship game or it's the first game of the season. I know exactly what my catcher is going to do. That's what makes him reliable. That's a guy that I can count on and start to build a roster around. And the seventh piece of the puzzle is the ability to get the job done. Look, we can always find some kind of an excuse for why we didn't get the job done. We can always find some kind of excuse why, we weren't able to keep that ball in front of us, or we can find an excuse for why that ball sailed to the backstop. But the ability to get the job done simply means leaving any excuses that we may have, even if they are slightly valid, we're leaving those away from our consideration. If I can remove any room for excuses that I may give myself, now my only option is to get the job done, right? If something goes wrong, it means taking accountability and taking ownership and looking to improve the next time you're in that situation. Ultimately, the ability to get the job done means that when you're on the field, you're going to do whatever it takes to make sure whatever job is in front of you gets done. So if that ball's in the dirt, I'm going to block it. Doesn't matter if it's a little bit too far outside. Doesn't matter if my pitcher shouldn't have spiked it. Doesn't matter. The ability to get the job done means that I get the job done as best as I can and as frequently and consistently as I can.